Welcome to Marriage IQ, the podcast for the intelligent spouse.
I'm Dr. Heidi Hastings.
And I'm Dr. Scott Hastings.
We are two doctors, two researchers, two spouses, two lovers, and two incredibly different human beings coming together for one purpose: to transform the stinky parts of your marriage into scintillating ones, using intelligence mixed with a little fun.
Hello and welcome back, all of you scintillating intelligent people, to Marriage IQ and the Hastings Institute for Advanced Marital Studies.
You've used that a couple of times now. That's sounding pretty good.
Yeah, I like the ring of it as well. Well, we're taking a break this week, this episode, from doing research. I know we enjoy doing research. That's what we do. It's very slow. It's very painstaking to create content that is intelligent, educational, and actionable for you and your marriage. This time, we're going to bring you some experiences that we've had living among the people of Rwanda.
Yeah.
If you don't know where Rwanda is, get out a map. It's a little country in Africa. It's sandwiched between the Democratic Republic of Congo, Tanzania, and Uganda. So
the land of 1,000 hills is what they refer to it as. And I would say the place that we've been that looks most like it is probably Ireland. What do you think about that? Lots
possibly.
of rolling hills.
Yeah, very green, yes.
Very, very green, temperate temperatures.
Probably the best climate I've ever had.
Yeah.
I've ever experienced.
It's really beautiful.
Lots of hills, green, deep in kind of the East Africa area. This is not our first rodeo with going to an African country.
Right.
Now, let me give you some background. Back about 3 or 4 years ago, we started talking, Heidi and I, amongst ourselves, about some visions. And one of the visions that we wanted for ourselves is to see ourselves working among people in Africa doing humanitarian service, education.
I think it was 3 years out that we said within 3 years we wanted to see that happen.
All right. That was on our 3-year vision list.
And kept bringing it up every year.
During our marriage retreats. And, we just kept talking about it. We moved it from a vision to a goal. And, when you talk about your goals every week, it does something to you.
In couples councils.
Yes. In our couples council every week, it does something to you. It makes you start thinking of that thing more and more.
And start taking action.
And you start taking action.
Yeah.
And that's what we started doing because we knew it was going to be big. And so that's what led us to our first trip to Africa for humanitarian purposes. And we were in Kenya. We're in Tanzania mainly in July of 2023.
Where I worked with women who were very vulnerable in helping provide them ways to have businesses. I was involved with some discussions on some relationship things, but your role there was super exciting.
For you, you did education for women.
Empowering women.
To be empowered, independent. I worked at the local hospital, if you want to call it that. It was very exciting, things that I'd never see here in the U.S. And
even among the tribal area, like outside of Arusha, about an hour or two, wasn't it?
Yeah, we went to a little
exciting
village outside of Arusha, which is the larger community there, and was able to treat some members of different tribes there. It was very fulfilling. I just could not imagine being more fulfilled as a physician in my life. I was able to purchase medications for very cheap, distribute them.
Medical supplies too.
Some medical supplies, do some procedures, injections and things. And, simple.
Really help people.
Yeah. So anyway,
we loved it.
We loved it. It was awesome. It was wonderful. It was life-changing. But it was something that we made as a goal together, start as a vision, then it moved to a goal, and we talked about that goal all the time until we were just like
Time to act.
Why are we keep talking about this? We're not doing anything.
Yep.
And so that's how it happened. And so fast forward now to 2024, and we want to do it again.
It's a little more personal this time.
We had a friend who we've befriended since he was pretty young.
14, I think.
And
He'd been a refugee in Rwanda for 14 years, lived there his whole life, settled in the Dallas area, about 45 minutes away from us. And we kind of mentored him.
Just been friends with Isaac.
He's our son's best friend. They went to college together. And then he started the foundation Dream Nziza, which means big dreams.
Big dreams. He wanted to give back to the country that allowed him to come to America. Mm-hmm. And so he founded this nonprofit, Dream Nziza.
They started out just teaching English in schools there, but they expanded their vision this year. And Isaac and our son, Hunter, and his wife, Lydia, are very integrally involved in this and invited us to come along with them this year.
So we planned it. We made it happen. We got back very recently and wanted to share with you some insights on our trip and how that pertains to marriage and how people in Rwanda look at marriage and relationships. I know that Isaac had to do some extra planning to help me get into Rwanda to perform medical duties. And so I actually did get an official license to practice in the country of Rwanda.
And I met the Minister of Health. Did you meet him?
I didn't get to meet him.
Made it possible. He's great. Just a young guy in his 40s, probably had lunch with him before you got there, but he's part of what made all of this happen.
So a lot of planning was needed and done. Me for getting in there medically, and Heidi spent lots and lots of hours preparing curriculum and handouts, files to teach to women, to educate and empower women.
Both women and young women in a very impoverished village there. So, yeah, some of the most vulnerable people in the country. Yeah.
So anyway, we just wanted to tell you a little bit about this adventure.
Yeah, it
today.
was an adventure for sure.
You know, anytime you go to Africa, it's going to be an adventure.
Yeah.
It just is.
Really wonderful, though.
It started out by me taking videos. I showed up at the airport after I dropped off Heidi and the kids.
Yeah, and our daughter Emily went with me. Hunter and Lydia were not there.
Heidi and Emily and two other people, a couple who were going with them on this trip to DFW. And I remember walking back in the door, seeing just this chaotic scene with zippers open and luggage and clothes everywhere. And I saw our daughter Emily stuffing things down her shirt. And I said, what is going on? Well, evidently, with all the stuff they wanted to bring over there to Rwanda.
Had 6 suitcases filled with clothes for the women and girls as donations.
Well, evidently they were overweight.
Yep.
For Turkish Airlines.
Yep.
And so they were trying to make it work.
We thought we were within the weight limit, but we didn't know that they were weighing our carry-ons. And we were only allowed to have a total between our backpack and our carry-on of 17 pounds, which meant we had to take everything out of those because that was everything we were living on for 2.5 weeks. The stuff in the suitcases was just stuff we were giving away. So we had to redistribute weight. It took about 2 hours, and we had to put on probably 5 or 6 outfits a piece to make that happen, to get through.
Fun times. I have videos.
Maybe we'll post them. We'll post them this week.
So I got them off, came back home. I flew out a week after they left and started my medical experience there in Kigali, which is the capital of Rwanda. As Heidi was saying earlier, Rwanda is very, very unique. Nice climate, as I said, very green.
Never
hilly.
Over 80 degrees. It was about 55.
The best climate I think I've been to a lot of countries. Mm-hmm. I think it's the best climate I've ever been in. A lot of motorcycles, a lot of people walking, no cars really. I mean,
Well,
there's
about
cars, but
20% of the people
a lot
own
of people
cars.
do not own cars there.
So the highways very unusually have lots of people walking on the sides of the highways everywhere you go.
Everywhere you go. The average wage for an average worker in Rwanda is somewhere around $3 to $6 a day.
And more, for most, closer to
If
3
you're
or
highly
less.
skilled, you might get $25 a day.
And this isn't per hour, people. This is per day. And those who are making $3 a day are working very hard labor out in the fields, usually women.
So the hospital, I can talk a little bit more about that later, but let's just say it was definitely more advanced than the one in Tanzania, but it's not what you're going to see anywhere in the United States. We'll get to that a little bit more when I talk about the hospital. Heidi, you got out there a little bit earlier. You got to go up to a rural village. I didn't get to do that.
Yeah, we went up to Gisenyi and then about an hour and a half drive from that every day. We were up above and we would dip down for about 45-minute drive on a bumpy dirt, dusty road surrounded by the most beautiful fields of produce you've ever seen in your life. Gorgeous, gorgeous. This little community, they harvest the produce. Probably somebody wealthy in Kigali bought all the fields, but these workers produce the produce and then people go sell it to the rest of the country and maybe even other parts of Africa. Just rolling hills filled with the most beautiful, rich dirt.
Well, it's a very small country, and I think it took hours to get even maybe, 20 miles? It took, 3 hours? Something like that?
Yeah, well, traffic's kind of crazy with all the motorcycles and people walking.
And then the small roads.
Yeah.
So tell me about your experiences with educating not only women to be empowered, but also empowered in their marriages and their relationships.
Yeah. So we'd gotten word ahead of time from a nonprofit that we were working there with in Rwanda that these are some of the most impoverished women in the country. They were probably maybe 50 to 100 years behind progressively than those in Kigali. And they did not have good marriage relationships, generally speaking, did not have
When
parenting
you say that,
skills.
what do you mean?
They just said they had tough relationships because typically they would work really hard. They would give the money to their husbands money. The husbands would drink it away and give them very little that was remaining that then they had to use to somehow procure food and pay school fees for their children, which for us is about $80 a year. But for them, that's a tremendous amount of money. And that much would be a lot for them. They couldn't do it. Yeah. So a lot of the children were just running around the town, the village. It's a larger village community, not going to school during the day. So only those who really had a little bit more privilege and income would be able to educate their children. So they found through this organization we were working with 60 of the most vulnerable women. And then in the afternoons, we would work with about 25 young women, high school women. And that was really wonderful. So I just didn't know how it was going to go, had very little information on what their experiences were. But like we always do, we started with identity.
Yeah.
And
teaching the 4 cornerstones in rural Africa.
Yep. Taught them about knowing who they are. They didn't really use agency very much. They just kind of worked more in tradition rather than thinking for themselves. And it was so amazing to see us be able to expand their perspectives of what they're capable of and how they actually could have a future. We were told they were quite hopeless, but by the end, I know they were really hopeful. I spent the first day doing that, and my daughter, Emily, mostly worked with them on mental health tools. These are women who'd had really, really hard lives, very traumatic in a lot of ways. And she taught them about emotions and about controlling your thoughts, about affirmations. I loved, loved, loved. One of my favorite parts was when she would tell them in their language. She learned the phrases for I am beautiful, I am strong, I am smart, I am brave. And we would have them repeat that back and forth, first in Rwandan, which was the language, and then in English. And I am a child of God.
Which no one really speaks Rwandan outside of Rwanda.
Well, they do. In some areas they do, and in some it's just slightly changed a little bit. But yeah, it's mostly there. And so that was really cool. I taught them about trauma and how their body might respond to trauma, what some of the impacts of trauma are on relationships. And then the next couple of days, I taught them about health itself, and about female reproductive systems and periods and cleanliness and health and germs. They found that all of that very interesting. They didn't know any of that before. And then I taught them about healthy marriage relationships. Now, this was pretty interesting. Did you know that in this culture, most, at least maybe in Kigali, it might be a little bit different, and if so, probably just more recently, but a lot of them have been told by their religious leaders that kissing is a sin. And so they might have 5, 8, 10 kids and have never even kissed each other.
Their husband.
I talked to them about intimacy, and I taught them all the 4 cornerstones as it pertains to marriage, but talked about just touching each other, holding hands, and they just giggled and got kind of embarrassed and didn't really know what was going on with that.
That's really interesting.
My translator, without me telling her to say this, told them, okay, you all need to go home tonight and kiss your husband. And it was a big brouhaha.
That was quite controversial.
Yeah, quite controversial
amongst the African women.
Yeah. So I asked them the next day, did you all go home and kiss your husbands? And no, none of them did. But one woman stood up. They would always stand up when they had something to say. One stood up and said, I didn't kiss my husband, but I was nicer to him last night. So they didn't seem to really understand about love in marriage.
Yeah.
They didn't really understand about intentionally protecting the marriage relationship and investing in the marriage relationship. And when on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you're down to the very basics. I need food, I need shelter, love maybe isn't as big of a priority, although we all need love. It's, they just didn't think about those things, and they were very interested. There were a few that were really voraciously taking notes.
And you brought in this new way of thinking.
Yeah, we talked.
So now they have a new way to at least think about things, a new perspective.
We talked about healthy sexuality, a little bit about consent. And so they closed all the windows. They wanted to feel safe knowing that they could ask some questions. We didn't get very deep into it, just the very basics. But I think that was helpful for them to know.
Kind of culture that they don't talk about really sex at all.
Right. Yeah. So we had some good talks about that. We talked about parenting, the differences between discipline and punishment, which they tend to have some pretty severe punishments sometimes. And so taught them a different way about how teaching through natural consequences. That was really impactful for them. And then we talked about self-reliance. And so we danced a lot. They would just break out in song and dance all the time. And we might post some videos on that, but they're beautiful dancers, and I definitely am not. You got to have some joints, some stuff I do not have.
And beautiful people.
They had huge smiles, huge smiles, so much love. They loved us and we loved them. In fact, I either cracked a rib or injured a rib because of all of the hugs that we got, and they were so appreciative.
Yeah, lots of hugs. I do recall seeing a video that you sent where you were handing out little diplomas or certificates at the end.
It was a huge deal
to these
for
women.
them.
That's a big deal.
And those of you who were on our Marriage IQ Instagram account and maybe Facebook account may have seen the fundraising that we were doing for sheep for these women. And we were able to purchase 33 sheep with the money
Nice.
that we got. And there's one more still going because one died the day before we gave them away. But a sheep to a woman, especially in rural Rwanda, can make all the difference because they have to, like I said, turn their money over to their husband. We gave some to the young women and some to the women.
You're saying normally they turn their money, but
Yes,
if they have a sheep,
this is what they own.
this is what they
And
own.
one of the women told us that she just cared for a sheep for her neighbor. And they have a tradition in Rwanda. If you have an animal, the firstborn you have to give to a neighbor. So as she cared for the sheep for her neighbor gave her the first sheep. And then she was able to breed that and have several more. They have 2 or 3 babies a year. And then after a couple of years, she had raised enough sheep that she was able to sell them and buy a piece of property, which is so empowering for a woman to have her own property that she can grow crops on or build a house on. They just built the houses there out of mud bricks. But amazing, amazing women that we tried to build a sisterhood with, that they would rely on each other and see each other's strengths as helping lift each other up instead of being jealous of or pulling each other down. If they use their resources and work together, they can be unstoppable. That was one of the highlights of my life.
Sounds like you were kind of a miracle to some of these people.
I don't know about that, but I learned a lot from them as well. Emily and I both did. That really, truly is such a blessing in our lives.
So you mentioned about in marriage specifically, sexual relationships, which was kind of superficial.
Yeah.
Well, you talked about emotions. Did you talk about communications, different styles?
Mostly communicating with kindness instead of anger. They, first of all, didn't say you could say no to sex when you're tired, when you're exhausted, after you've just had a baby or whatever. And they were very interested to learn how to say things like, honey, I'm just really, really tired tonight. I love you. I want to be with you, but can we do it another time or can we just hug? Some of the things that
Amanda
Lauder
Lauder
taught us. Yeah, I was able to bring up there and they found that very, very liberating, and just speaking in kindness and love, communicating, having joint power, which was very novel to them, and being able to speak up for what we want or need, but do it in a very kind and respectful way.
And I like how you did it kind of as a lecture series, like a classroom.
They could ask
kind
questions.
of more formal with the whole graduation ceremony and everything.
We had such a great
Very cool.
translator. But with the young women, when we talked to them, we used the same topics, but came at it from a different perspective. And all of their questions were about healthy relationships. They wanted to know, how do I know if he loves me? How many times do I have to keep begging him to come back, to trust me, to whatever? And so we were able to point out what makes relationships really healthy and what makes them really unhealthy, and what is actually considered abusive or just not healthy. And we used a tire like a bicycle, because a lot of them ride bicycles. They use the bicycles to carry and push these super heavy loads.
And lots of things on their heads too.
Lot on their head. Oh, they must have great core abs, because their ability to balance heavy weight on their heads is really incredible.
Yeah. So, maybe we should have our episodes translated into Rwandan.
Maybe. I don't know how to do that.
And then Isaac took us to his refugee camp, or what used to be. He grew up in a refugee camp there, and for him, it was a very emotional experience.
Yeah, they had
to go back there and see where he lived in this very, very, very trying time.
They didn't have enough food to eat.
Some of these stories that he told us were just outrageous about this refugee camp. It was not a place that there was a lot of comfort and
they couldn't
security.
Tell somebody when they got word that they were leaving to go to another country, because they might be poisoned in the night. So they had to keep it under wraps. They'd get like 3 days notice.
Their neighbor might poison them.
Right.
So, but anyway.
But the camp is gone now, and it was just beautiful mountaintop hills, green, beautiful.
It was actually quite a spiritual experience for me, to be honest. I think
so.
I sat there and I just looked out over this hill, where it used to be, this refugee camp, and it was just very quiet. And of course, some local children came up.
The women coming in from the fields with their hose over their shoulders.
Yeah, I think the children had never seen white people before because they would just stare at us, just stare.
They'd lay on the grass.
They'd lay on the
3
grass
feet from us.
They just stare at us.
Everywhere we went, that was the case.
Yeah.
They'd say, white person, white man.
And then, of course, they loved it when we chased them around and
played with them.
And it was a great experience. Moving into some of my experiences coming into the hospital system, like I said, it wasn't my first time. The hospital system is a little bit more advanced than the one in Arusha, Tanzania.
And didn't you do more teaching at this hospital?
So this time I jumped into the hospital, inpatient, internal medicine. That's my specialty. A few things I noticed right off the bat in Rwanda. Punctuality is not on everyone's top priority list.
Or anyone's, probably.
A little frustrating.
African time is very different.
Because I had to rely on a driver to get me there. And I hate showing up late, but what can you do, right? So
half hour late.
And then I get there late and they're late. But it was exhilarating for me to see complicated patients that I haven't really even thought about or looked at since medical school and residency. Things like treating advanced HIV and AIDS, tuberculosis, for crying out loud. When was the last time I saw tuberculosis in the U.S.? Cirrhosis, both from alcohol and from hepatitis. End-stage biliary cancer. They don't have hospice there. I found that out.
We're really blessed to have hospice.
Toward the end, I found a young lady who was breathing poorly, very quickly, very low oxygen levels. They thought that she had a blood clot in her lung. And I happened to look at her chest x-ray and saw that she had a collapsed lung, not a blood clot. But so she needed a chest tube very quickly. Because this was called a tension pneumothorax, which is much more serious than a simple pneumothorax. It can kill you. By the time I was done, even though surgery had been consulted, nothing had been done. And she still sat there with this oxygen with saturation levels in the 70s. Things that
don't know if she survived or not.
Things that would never happen here. But I hope that they were able to get that chest tube in because she was very young, in her 20s, I think, maybe early 30s.
Wow.
People with previous tuberculosis, they were treated for it, but their lungs are shot and they can't afford oxygen at home. So they live in the hospital on oxygen. They just live there.
Think that sending oxygen to their home would be a lot cheaper than keeping them in the hospital for years.
Yeah, you'd think so, but the way it's set up there it is different. And oxygen at home is really expensive.
Okay.
So I loved all of it. I loved rounding on these patients, giving my opinions on things, evaluating their records, labs, imaging, EKGs, rounding, doing physical exams, and making medical decisions. It was very highly rewarding for me. I did work outpatient as well with Dr. Prosper, who was the attending physician.
Said he's very intelligent.
Very intelligent. I really enjoyed working with him. We saw a lot of folks with hyperthyroidism, systemic sclerosis, and one lady, very rare. Of course, the kidney disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, all the stuff we see here. But over there, you could see what happens when you don't treat them here. This is what you get. The kidney failure, heart failure, and we see that there quite a bit. I am quite surprised that I didn't see more musculoskeletal problems in women because
the heavy loads on their head.
Because of the heavy loads they have to balance on their head.
Yeah.
I didn't see more cervical spine problems. But the last day I was there, we had a lady who came in with severe sciatica. I couldn't understand a word what she was saying, but I was able to pinpoint the sacroiliac joint was the focal point of her pain. So I actually, before I left, was able to do an injection and have her be in so much less pain before I left. I just felt so good about that.
That's great. And that's something you just took along with you?
Yeah, I just brought it with me in case I needed it. You know, shots, injections. And Dr. Prosper did have me teach lecture to some of the medical students about being succinct in your case presentation. And one of the best things you can do as a physician is learn to be humble, because if there's anything in this profession, you're going to have to be humble. You will be humbled. You will be wrong. You will make wrong decisions. And it will look very embarrassing if you are haughty and proud. So just practice being humble and saying it could be this, it could be that. Don't yell at the staff. Be kind to people. While I was there, I got to talk with a former member of the Rwandan cabinet, Gerald Zirimbawagagbo. I'm sure I slaughtered that. But
I'm really jealous that you got to visit with he and his wife.
Yeah, all of their last names there are just almost impossible to pronounce here. But, yeah, he served as an ambassador at one point to Israel. He lived there at this beautiful home, retired with his lovely wife, Rita. We tried to get him on for an episode of Marriage IQ and was not able to make that happen.
Yeah,
but we did spend a couple of hours with him just talking about one of the main things he was talking about is how important marriage and families are to a society and to culture. He said that is really the keystone to a successful society, even above and beyond economic policies.
And he should know.
He should know. He was heavily involved in that government for several years. And, you know, he wrote this book. It's called Foundations Matter, a holistic approach to human capital development.
And what's that about?
Well, the gist of it is that it's important to start early, both in marriage, before marriage, and when children are born, as soon as possible, to start educating yourself on a foundation of a successful marriage and family, to focus on foundational principles. He talks about the cornerstones that we have, maybe a little bit differently, but we both agreed on these cornerstones, learning about our identity, intentionality, insight, intimacy, and found a lot of common ground. And what he was teaching, he focused, again, before you get married, he says you need a podcast on before you get married, not after. It's too late when you're married.
You mean like
pre-marriage
IQ or
but pre-marriage I do IQ or something like that.
All right, listeners, what do you think about that? Do you think that's needed? Would that be helpful?
Well,
Would
I
it
brought
have been
that up
helpful?
to you. I think you said you're too busy to do another podcast.
No, but we could maybe do a course on that and offer a course.
Those
let us
people
know.
not yet married, right?
Yeah, let us know what you think.
So anyway, those are all the things we talked about that we both agreed on. It was very, very lovely to talk to this man. He talked about, too, the importance of eating healthy, eating fresh fruits and vegetables, avoiding highly processed foods, which I totally agree with, 100%.
Yeah. You know, while you're talking about this man who was integrally involved in the government for that country, I'm just going to throw out a little statistic here that the current president of Rwanda, who's been in over 20 years now, made a decree that 50% of parliament had to be women. And right now it's 2/3 of parliament are women. And I went there and asked if I could go in and observe, and I had to write a letter. And it was just like the day before we left, and they didn't get it through before I had to leave. But I would love to see how that might change things for that country, having so many women in positions of power. I don't know. Did he talk anything about that with you?
Not particularly, no.
Yeah. But we did hear that the men do have a hard time with women in power as far as wanting to be married to them. And so most of the women who are in positions of leadership are not able to have marriage relationships and families because the men feel threatened by it, which I found really interesting.
Well, they all need to listen to Marriage IQ. That's all I can say here. I did a little research on Rwanda, the marital rates versus the U.S. So there's about 4 marriages per 1,000 people per year, in at least recently in Rwanda.
Explain what that means, because that sounds very, very low to me.
So in a given year, this is like 2023, for every 1,000 people in Rwanda, 4 of them got married.
And what is it in the U.S.?
6,
Okay,
roughly.
so a little bit less getting married.
America's a little bit higher. So yeah, about 49% of Rwandans are married 12 and over. I guess they get married younger there. The girls do anyway. 12 and older, 49%. In the U.S., about 53% Americans over age 18 are married. That's over half, people. Just saying. So what are the big takeaways from our Rwanda experience?
That's a good question.
I feel so fulfilled that we had a vision, we had a goal. We did nothing but talk about it for years. And because of that, we started moving, even though we didn't do that all at once. And then we made it happen. Then we made it happen again. This drives home the point, the importance of sitting down with your spouse, being intentional, making plans, and reviewing them weekly, or at least regularly. We like weekly with our couples counsel.
One of my big takeaways was perhaps we need to slow down life a little bit. I mean, they're very slow with life, but we are so scheduled here. So scheduled every minute. You and I are. We rarely sit down to watch a movie, one night a week.
Yeah.
But they really take a lot of time to have social interactions with neighbors, with extended family, with others.
That don't involve social media and phones.
You'll see all the highways, like we said, with people walking along the highways. It's usually in groups. They might even be in a suit and a long dress, going to an event or something, just walking miles and chatting with each other while they're walking.
Enjoying each other's company.
Yeah, I think far more social in a lot of ways.
So being intentional, making plans and goals, slowing down.
Yeah. And then I also am very grateful for the research that we have that I think in some parts is helping educate us about how to be better spouses and better parents. And it really hasn't filtered down to them yet. There are some really rough traditions there that do not lend themselves to happiness in family life. Hopefully what we taught will start making a difference. And those, we asked the women who could write to take really good notes and then teach other people in their village. We had to turn people away. A lot more people wanted to come and learn. We said, you learn it well, you take notes, and then gather as women, empower women to teach these skills to them. Maybe we'll go back and have you talk to the men.
Yeah, I think one of the takeaways I'm getting here is that we need to internationalize this message, not just go to Americans, but really more international.
We do have about 10% of our listeners are international, but they are mostly English speaking.
Right. But I'm talking what we did. We actually went to their country. We were there. We lived with them. And it was wonderful. Look, it brought me incredible deep meaning to do this. I don't have anything to show for it other than a substantial amount of meaning and new perspective, which is huge and worth a lot more money than anything I can drive or live in. I'm just saying.
Right.
The other thing I learned is the people there are a lot like us here.
Mm-hmm.
They want to love and they want to be loved.
Mm-hmm.
They want to cherish and they want to be cherished. They want meaning and purpose that brings that lasting joy and fulfillment, just like we do.
They are happy people. Like everywhere we would go, they would be outside, not inside. Here, I drive. I don't see a person outside for miles most of the time. But everyone was outside. We would drive by in this 45-minute dirt road drive through the village. And at first, they'd look at us with their eyes squinted. And I thought they were kind of being mean or upset with us. But then I'd wave and smile, and they'd get the hugest smiles on their face. Just so happy. It was just confusing to them. They weren't mad. They weren't upset, but they were confused at what we were doing, riding in this car, stirring up all the dirt, and they'd just watch for us to come every day and just be waving and wave while we're going down the road, just everywhere. And lovely, lovely, loving people.
Well, we hope you've enjoyed our travelogue with you today, talking about marriage to the people of Rwanda.
Our shared vision that made this all possible.
And if you have any specific questions, reach out to us. hello@marriageiq.com. We can tell you more about our trip if you want.
Watch social media. We'll be releasing some videos and some pictures.
And I think we'll be releasing a montage of some videos. So you all have a great rest of your week. We're glad you're here with us today. We love you. And remember that the scintillating marriage starts with changing ourselves first. We'll see you next time on another exciting episode of
Marriage IQ.